Welcome to the Daily Current Affairs by CivicCentre IAS, where we try to discuss the top 10 important articles for UPSC CSE Prelims 2025 from the Hindu, the Indian Express and the PIB. Displayed are the list of topics which we have chosen for today's discussion. The first article of the day says that the Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank of India held steadfast in its battle against inflation and amid a weakening growth momentum, with 4 of the 6 members voting to keep the policy rate unchanged at 6.5% for the 11th bi-monthly review in a row. In this context, we'll first talk about the repo rate, then we'll talk about the cash reserve ratio. See, what is repo rate? See, it is the interest rate at which the central bank of the country, for example in our case India, the RBI, lends money to the commercial banks. Now, what is the main purpose of this repo rate? Firstly, the RBI uses the repo rate to control the liquidity in the economy. And secondly, it is a key tool in the RBI's monetary policy to influence inflation, economic growth and liquidity. Then, how does this repo rate works? Firstly, when the commercial banks face a shortage of funds, they borrow money from the central bank. Know that these loans are repaid with interest at the repo rate. Furthermore, the loans are typically secured by the securities like the treasury bills or the government bonds. Now, what is the impact of changing the repo rate on the inflation and economic growth? Firstly, when we increase the repo rate, this is used to control the inflation by making borrowing more expensive. So, it restricts the excessive money flow in the economy. Secondly, the decrease in the repo rate is used to stimulate economic growth by infusing more money into the market. So, it encourages the borrowing by the commercial banks and ultimately increases the money circulation. Now, what is the effect of the repo rate on the public borrowings? See, when the repo rate increases, commercial banks face a higher cost for borrowing from the RBI, which results in higher interest rates on loans and reduced borrowing by individuals and businesses. So, when the repo rate decreases, it lowers the interest rates on loans and increases the liquidity in the market. Now, if we look at the broader impact on the financial instruments, the repo rate indirectly affects the interest rates charged by the banks on loans, returns on the deposits, investment instruments such as the bonds and fixed income securities. Now, moving on to talk about the cash reserve ratio, in short called the CRR. See, the CRR is a monetary policy tool that requires commercial banks to keep a certain percentage of their total deposits as liquid reserves with the Reserve Bank of India. Now, what are the objectives of the CRR? Firstly, it ensures that the banks have enough liquidity to meet the depositor demands. Secondly, it helps to maintain the stability by controlling the amount of money in circulation. Thirdly, by adjusting the CRR, the RBI influences the amount of money available for lending. So, this can help to control the inflation by reducing the lending and stimulate the economic growth by increasing the lending. Now, what is the role of CRR in monetary policy? Firstly, the periodic changes in the CRR allow the RBI to respond to evolving economic conditions. So, this makes CRR a critical tool for managing the economy. Secondly, the adjustments can be used either to tighten or ease the liquidity based on the economic needs. Now, what is the impact of a CRR cut? So, a CRR cut injects surplus liquidity into the banking system, allowing banks to lend more. The second article of the day says that the Indian Space Research Organization and the European Space Agency have signed a technical implementing plan document for ground tracking support for India's Gaganyaan mission. In this context, we'll talk about the Gaganyaan mission. See, this Gaganyaan project envisages demonstration of human spaceflight capability by launching crew of 3 members to an orbit of 400 km for a 3 days mission and bring them back safely to Earth by landing in the Indian Ocean waters. Now, the success of the Gaganyaan mission will put India in the allied group of nations which are the US, Russia and China having human spaceflight capability. Now, significantly, there are 2 main objectives for this mission. Firstly is to undertake the human space flights and secondly the space explorations. Know that a modified version of the ISRO's most reliable rocket vehicle LVM-3, the 3-stage heavy lift launch vehicle previously called the Geosynchronous Launch Vehicle Mark III, is launching the vehicle of the Gaganyaan mission. Now, there are different phases of the Gaganyaan mission. Firstly, with respect to the testing phase, before executing the unmanned and the manned mission, ISRO has planned to demonstrate numerous tests, including the following ones, which are the integrated airdrop test, pad abort test, and finally test vehicle flights. Then it will be for technology demonstration, safety and reliability, and will be heavily instrumented to study the performance of the systems before the crewed flight, and this is with respect to unmanned missions. Now, some of the advanced tests are also planned here, which can be seen below. The third article of the day says that the Trump administration deserves a lot of credit for the takeoff of the Quad in its second iteration, according to our External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. He said that the US President-elect's concerns on the alliances and burden sharing do not apply to quadrilateral grouping, as everyone contributes a fair share. In this context, we'll talk about the Quad. See, Quad, also known as the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, is an informal strategic forum comprising of 4 nations, which are Australia, India, Japan, and the USA. Know that the 4 countries share a common interest in maintaining a free and open Indo-Pacific, promoting democracy, human rights, and the rule of law, and countering China's expanding influence in the region. And furthermore, the Quad was initially formed in 2007 during an informal meeting of leaders from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. But it was the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe who proposed the idea of creating the Quad. Now, what are the principles of the Quad? See, the motive behind Quad is to keep the strategic sea routes in the Indo-Pacific free from any military or political influence. So it is basically seen as a strategic grouping to reduce Chinese domination. But the core objective of the Quad is to secure a rules-based global order, freedom of navigation, and a free liberal trading system. So the coalition aims to offer alternative debt financing for nations in the Indo-Pacific region. Now, how does this Quad function? See, the Quad is a loose grouping rather than a formal alliance. So it does not have a decision-making body or a secretariat or a formal structure like NATO or the United Nations. And also, unlike the NATO, the Quad does not include provisions for collective defense, instead choosing to conduct joint military exercises as a show of unity and diplomatic cohesion. So, significantly, the alliance is maintained through summits, meetings, information exchanges, and military drills. The next article says that India has bagged the International Social Security Association's Good Practice Award for Asia and Pacific for this year for 5 services provided by the Employees Provident Fund organization. In this context, we'll talk about it. See, it is a statutory body that came into existence under the Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act of 1952. So significantly, it is also the nodal agency for implementing bilateral social security agreements with other countries. Furthermore, it is one of the largest social security organizations in India, both in terms of beneficiary base and the quantum of financial transactions undertaken. So, the EPFO is under the administrative control of the Ministry of the Labour and Employment under the Government of India. Now, what is the mission of EPFO? Firstly, to meet the evolving needs of comprehensive social security in a transparent, contactless, faceless, and paperless manner. Secondly, to ensure Nirbudh services, which is the seamless and uninterrupted with multi-locational and auto-claim settlement process for disaster-proofing EPFO. Thirdly, to ensure ease of living for members and pensioners and ease of doing business for employers by leveraging Government of India's technology platforms for reaching out to millions. The next article says that the Indira Gandhi Prize for Peace, Disarmament and Development for 2024 will be conferred on the former Chilean president and prominent human rights voice, Michelle Bachelet, a statement issued by the Indira Gandhi Memorial Trust said. In this context, we'll talk about the prize. See, the Indira Gandhi Prize for Peace, Disarmament and Development Award has been conferred every year since 1986 by Indira Gandhi Memorial Trust in the honor of Indira Gandhi, who is the former Prime Minister of India. So the award recognizes individuals or organizations for their exceptional contributions for international peace, disarmament and development. Significantly, the prize is awarded annually and is considered one of the highest honors in the field of peace and development. Know that it consists of a monetary reward of 25 lakh rupees along with a citation. Now, the categories under the award is bestowed in 3 categories, which are the peace, disarmament and development. Then what is the criteria for the recognition of the award? See, the recipients are chosen based on their exceptional and sustained efforts to address the critical global challenges related to peace, disarmament and development. So their work should demonstrate a positive impact on the international community and contribute to the betterment of the human welfare. The next article talks about the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. In this context, we'll talk about it. See, this MGNREGA is one of the highest work guarantee programs in the world, launched in 2005 by the Ministry of Rural Development. Significantly, the primary objective of the scheme is to guarantee 100 days of employment in every financial year to adult members of any rural household willing to do public related unskilled manual work. Then the Panchayat Raj institutions will implement the program. Notably, the person days under MGNREGS defined as the total amount of work days by a person registered under the scheme in a financial year. Now, there are two main objectives for it. Firstly, to enhance the livelihood security of the rural people by creating wage employment opportunities. And secondly, to develop a rural asset base to boost productive employment, augment household income, and sustain economic well-being. Now, if you have to look at the key features of the MGNREGA, see, the Act grants a legal right to employment for the adult members of rural households, with at least 1/3 of the beneficiaries being women. Furthermore, if the work is not assigned within the 15 days, the applicant is entitled to receive an unemployment allowance. So, this allowance is 1/4 of the minimum wage for the first 30 days and a half for the following period. Then the Gram Sabhas recommends and oversee at least 50% of the projects. Then the cost sharing between the central government and the states for wages, materials and administrative expenses is done. The next article says that highlighting the possibility for semiconductor collaboration between India and Japan, External Affairs Minister said on Friday that he was seeing the beginnings of something potentially important that could reshape the global geopolitical dynamics. Furthermore, speaking at the India-Japan Forum in New Delhi, Jaishankar also spoke about rebuilding India's relationship with China post the recent disengagement along the LAC in the eastern Ladakh and how that is an exercise that still has to be undertaken. In this context, we'll first talk about the India-Japan semiconductor collaboration. See, both India and Japan are revitalizing the semiconductor industries. So the collaboration includes working with Taiwan, signaling the beginnings of transformative partnership in this critical sector. Now, talking about the geopolitical implications, this semiconductor development is viewed as a vital field for balancing geopolitical equations in the coming decade. Significantly, this partnership could potentially reshape global geopolitical dynamics. Now, talking about the India-Japan bilateral relations, see, they have a strategic importance. The India and Japan partnership is seen as a cornerstone for a free and open Indo-Pacific. Also, the discussions focused on expanding this relationship to address the mutual and regional challenges. Then, with respect to trade and practical collaboration, despite no historical conflicts, practical plans need to be developed to convert good sentiment into actionable outcomes. Then, with respect to tourism, Indian tourism to Japan remains low compared to other destinations like Southeast Asia, the Gulf, and the Europe. So, encouraging travel to Japan is seen as a potential area of growth. Now, moving on to talk about line of actual control, in short called the LAC. See, the line of actual control is the notional boundary that divides Indian control territory from the Chinese control territory. Note that LAC is not formally agreed upon by the two countries and is neither depicted on the map nor physically marked on the ground. But India considers the LAC to be 3488 km long, while China estimates it to be around 2000 km. Now, this LAC is divided into three sectors, where the eastern sector, which encompasses Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim, the middle sector, which spans Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, and lastly the western sector, which includes Ladakh. The next article says that after 3 decades of research and hard work, India has led the way with the creation of the Nafithromycin, which is the country's first indigenous microlide antibiotic. In this context, we'll talk about it. See, India's first indigenously developed antibiotic aimed at tackling the antibacterial resistance is this Nafithromycin. Know that it is developed by the Vocard Pharmaceuticals with support from the BIRAC, which is a unit of the Department of the Biotechnology. Know that the trade name for this Nafithromycin is Micnaf. Now, what are the key features of it? See, firstly, it is 10 times more effective than the current treatments like azithromycin. Secondly, it addresses both the typical and atypical drug-resistant bacteria. And thirdly, it offers a 3-day treatment regimen offering recovery times and patient outcomes. Then with respect to the safety and side effects, it has a superior safety profile with minimum side effects and no significant drug interactions. Now, what is the significance of it for India? See, India accounts for 23% of the global pneumonia burden, and it tackles drug resistant infections, which is a growing global health crisis. So, this strengthens India's position in combating the AMR. Now, moving on to talk about the antimicrobial resistance. See, AMR occurs when microorganisms evolve to resist the effects of the antimicrobial drugs, making them less effective. So, the AMR leads to infections becoming harder to treat, increased disease spread, longer hospital stays, higher medical costs, and increased mortality. Now, these are the causes for the antimicrobial resistance. You can have a look, which are the misuse and overuse of antimicrobials, agricultural practices, and environmental factors. The next article talks about the nano urea and nano DAP. In this context, we'll talk about it. See, firstly, talking about nano urea, it is a nanotechnology based revolutionary agri input that provides nitrogen to plants. Know that it is developed and patented by Indian Farmers Fertilizer Cooperative Limited, in short called the IFFCO. Furthermore, the IFFCO nano urea is the only nano fertilizer approved by the Government of India and included in the Fertilizer Control Order. Looking at the key features, see, compared to the conventional urea pril, nano urea has desirable particle size of about 20 to 50 nanometers and more surface area and more number of particles also. Furthermore, it contains 4% of total nitrogen by weight by volume. Now, what are the benefits under it? See, it is produced by an energy efficient, environment friendly production process which leaves less carbon footprints. Also, it is more efficient in terms of nutrient uptake and releases nitrogen more slowly. Then, it also reduces the amount of nitrogen lost to the atmosphere as a greenhouse gases, and it is expected to to improve the crop productivity and health and nutritional quality to address an imbalanced and excessive use of the conventional fertilizer. Now, moving on to talk about the nano DAP. See, nano DAP is a specialized form of DAP designed with the goal of improving the fertilizer's effectiveness in promoting plant growth and development. So, in 2023, the Indian Farmer Fertilizer Cooperative launched its nano DAP containing 8% nitrogen and 16% phosphorus by volume. So, unlike the conventional DAP, which comes in granular form, the IFFCO's nano DAP is in liquid form. The last article of the day says that on December 7th of 2024, India will take a bold step towards eliminating TB, which is a disease that continues to affect millions across the nations. So this campaign aims to accelerate the fight against TB by improving case detection and reducing the diagnostic delays and enhancing treatment outcomes, particularly for the vulnerable populations. In this context, let us talk about the relevant aspects. Firstly, talking about TB. See, it is an infectious disease that most often affects the lungs and is caused by a bacteria. Know that it spreads through the air when infected people cough, sneeze, or spit. Furthermore, this tuberculosis is both preventable and curable. About a quarter of the global population is estimated to have infected with TB bacteria. Now, these are the common symptoms under TB. Now, moving on to talk about diagnosis. See, WHO recommends the use of rapid molecular diagnostic tests as the initial diagnostic test in all persons with signs and symptoms of TB. Then the rapid diagnostic tests recommended by WHO include expert MTB or the IRF Ultra and TrueNat assays. Then these tests have high diagnostic accuracy and will lead to major developments in the early detection of TB and drug-resistant TB. Furthermore, a tuberculin skin test or the interferon gamma release assay can be used to identify the people with infection. Also, diagnosing multi-drug resistant and other resistant forms of TB as well as the HIV-associated TB can be complex and also expensive. Thus, tuberculosis is particularly difficult to diagnose in children. So, if you have to talk about the progress towards the TB elimination goals, see, firstly, with respect to the global efforts, the WHO has launched the joint initiative Find, Treat, All TB and TB with the Global Fund and Stop TB partnership. Furthermore, the WHO releases the Global Tuberculosis Report. Looking about the India's efforts, we have launched the Pradhan Mantri TB Mukt Abhiyan, National Strategic Plan for Tuberculosis Elimination, TB Harega to Desh Jatega campaign, Nikshay Poshna Yojana, etc. Significantly, India aims to eliminate TB by 2025, 5 years ahead of the global target. Now, there is something launched that the National Tuberculosis Elimination Program, which is a key initiative under the National Health Mission aimed at achieving TB-free India by 2025. Significantly, it is aligned with the National Strategic Plan for TB elimination. Also, the program emphasizes early diagnosis, prevention, patient support, and cross-sector partnership. So in this video, we have discussed 10 articles in total for today. We'll be back again with another video tomorrow. Thank you.